Hey, all you impressive chessers. Today we're going to go over this really exciting puzzle and we're going to go over how we should go over puzzles like they were part of a real game. All right, so we got this position right here. It's white to move. And like I said, we're going to go over this puzzle like it was a real game. And the first thing you want to do is see what your opponent is threatening. A big mistake that a lot of chess players make is they only look at what they're doing. They don't take the time to look at what their opponent's doing. And if you do that, you will not be able to solve this puzzle. By the way, before we get going, if you would like to pause your video, you should do so right now. I'll also be giving a blog attached to this video where you can interactively go over the moves with the chessboard on chess.com. All right, so the way to pretend that we are giving away our move is we'll just do some random move that's not very good, of course. Super big blunder. Hopefully you guys see why that is not a good move. The reason we played that, and this is a checkmate, by the way, so yeah. I call this one the in-your-face checkmate. You put your queen right in front of the king's face. She takes away all the squares for the king, and all you need is one protector. So this is the most common checkmate in chess, actually, just because there's so many situations where this can happen. All right, so that is our opponent's pretty obvious threat there. So that's, by knowing that, that cuts out like this move, which might be an enticing option, but of course, nope, gets checkmated. It also cuts out something like, I don't know, a5, seemingly almost trapping that bishop. But again, that's a big time blunder. So all these moves do not work because of what our opponent is threatening. All right, so now we know our opponent is threatening to checkmate us in one move with that queen and helper or interface checkmate, whatever you like to call that checkmate. So another mistake that people make is immediately seeing that their opponent has a checkmating threat. That's not the mistake. The mistake is trying to stop it without looking at your good moves first. So the first move we should actually look at are our checks. It's like maybe a check here, or yeah, that's actually our only check, huh? That's our only check. So we should definitely look at that check. In a real game, we would totally look at that first. But as you'll see, that happens to be the answer. So we will not look at that first. We will instead look at our tempting options. But actually, let's go ahead and put it. Spoiler alerts, that is the answer. Hopefully you guys did pause and tried yourself, either in the blog or on this video. All right, so we have this check. That is the most forcing move. You always want to do the most forcing move because if it works. Because if it works, then they don't have very many ways to get out of this. Like in this case, they have to take our knight. Otherwise, we're going to take their queen, or actually they play the worst move they possibly could. They get checkmated right away with that interface checkmate again. All right, so, but even if they do a move like this, of course, not very good because they just lose their queen. No more checkmate if they don't have a queen. All right, so we should definitely look at that first. And then next thing I would look at is this move, which turns out to actually be a mistake. We'll see why in a second. They will move. They have to move here. That's the only move because the bishop guards the queen. And now it's still kind of difficult to figure out what to do. We just lost a knight, and they still have this checkmating threat. Unfortunately, we've never been able to play this F3 move to block the queen because of this pin. So now we can do a move like this that covers the square. The queen would probably go over here. This is not very clear to me. You only want to do the forcing move if it's a clear game winner. So let's come back to the beginning. You guys are probably all yelling on your screens right now, or your phones or your computers or however you're watching this, saying like, dude, just pin the queen. Of course. How easy. Awesome move, it looks like. Because we are pinning the queen, and obviously that queen cannot go there because it is absolutely pinned to the king. So it looks like we stopped everything. Here I'm going to pause it for a second because I want to see if you guys can figure out what black can do here to get out of this mess. All right. Hopefully you had time to pause your video and you found the amazing bishop takes f2 counter tactic. So they are pinning our queen. We are forcing them to take our bishop. That's the only move to get out of this check. Because we got some major firepower going on over here by this king. So the king has to take it. And now black actually has two winning moves here. The easiest is to just castle. And that is also a check, by the way. Very important. Otherwise, they would take our queen, of course. Or move their knight somewhere and do some kind of discovered attack. All right, so now they're in check. They can throw some stuff in the way if they want to, like the bishop, and then they can throw their queen in the way. Our queen is not pinned anymore, so remember it was pinned to the king, but the king is not there. And that interface checkmate again happens again. By the way, if you only knew one checkmate, that would be the one to know because it is by far the most common. And by the way, black had another way to win, which is rook to f8. Check. Again, they could put stuff in the way, but that doesn't help them very much. We would just take it with our rook. And now, boom. Deflecting the rook from pinning our queen. We would love to checkmate him, but our queen is pinned at the moment. So we deflect that rook away. Our queen is released from the pin, and we go ahead and checkmate them. All right, so rook f to e1 is out, unfortunately. Darn. All right, so if rook f to e1 didn't work, seems pretty likely that rook c to e1 might work. Does the same thing, pins the queen. The queen cannot checkmate us because, again, it's absolutely pinned to the king. But let's flip it around. Hopefully you guys saw. This works again, actually. Crazy. Because if they take with the rook used to be guarding that rook. Ouch. Splat. We get checkmated if we do that. And again, if we take with the king, they can either castle check on us, and then we're not pinned anymore, so let's go ahead and checkmate them. Or we can do that rook f8 check again. And deflect that rook again, and mate. Woo! So both the rook pins do not work, unfortunately. Crazy. So those were the two tempting moves. Let's go back to the drawing board here. Again, I've already told you that knight d6 is the right move, but we're going to see why. So again, if I was playing a real game, I would see like, okay, my two tempting moves didn't work. My direct checks didn't work right away. Maybe I can guard this with something, and hopefully I would see knight to e3 does that. Knight to e3 does guard the checkmate. You might think they could take it and then checkmate us, but very good move here. Queen takes, and it's not letting me do that because, again, you are pinned. And so they would have to take our queen. We would take back, and this looks pretty good. If anything, this is probably better for white. Well, actually, I'm not sure. Let's see here, actually. This is pretty unclear because unfortunately, if they take this piece right here, unfortunately for black. We take here. We're taking away these 2 squares from the rook. The bishop's already taking away that. So we are actually getting our material back. So yeah, this is probably at least a little bit better for white, I would say. And that's what I would do if I was playing a real game. I would go ahead and use this as a backup option. So I would be like, okay, if worst comes to worst, none of my direct forcing moves or moves that do something really good for my position don't work. I always have this 93 move to come back to. By the way, black's best move here is probably to castle queenside instead of taking the knight. Now they are about to take the knight, so if we do something silly like this, that's no good. They'll take there, and whatever we take back with, it's no longer a pin, so we get checkmated. That was a remove the defender tactic. So instead of that, they should try to trade queens. Black should let them to activate the rook, and this position right here is very unclear. So we got to get our rook out of here. We got some firepower going down here though. So I would say this position is a decent one for whites and definitely good enough to be a backup option if all else fails. But I would go back before we look at 93 further. Let's look at other more beneficial moves. So it turns out knight to d6 is the move, like I said. And the reason is that we are looking at black's counters to, remember these pins did not work because of castling or rook to f8. Well, by the way, now castling is out of the question. So now we would look at whether to put this rook or this rook, and we don't have to worry about castling anymore. We still do have to worry about rook f8. So yes, this is the correct move. We'll see why in a second. They do their best chance. Let's keep it flipped actually. Again, we have to take this, and they check us. And now, again, if we move our king back, that is not a very good move because they will do this awesome deflection tactic and checkmate us. So what's the deal? Did doing that knight check actually help us that much? Doesn't look like it at first until you look ahead and you say, okay, that's a check. If I move my king, I get checkmated. But don't forget, we are about to take their queen with check, actually, for free. That's the important part, though. That is a free queen. If we can get the tempo, we can take it for free. So the way to get the tempo is to counter check. Boosh. And again, we couldn't do this with the knight on c4 because that was blocking our queen, right? And by the way, they could have castled with our knight on c4, but again, they can't do that. So they have nothing better than to take our queen with another check. And then we counter check them again. Again, they have nothing better than to take our bishop because the other moves just move the king without taking a piece. And then at the end of that, we get the queen for free. And we are up a rook for a knight. It looks like, yes. The way to count up the material on chess.com, they keep track of the points for you. But if you're playing a real over the board game, the fastest way to count points is to just take the like pieces like this. Be like, well, obviously we both have kings. So those are all like, and these are extra. So we know the rook is worth 5, the knight is worth 3. We are up 5 for 3. And you might not think that's a big deal, but actually, here, I'll put the evaluation on for you guys. Boom. This is a pretty big advantage for white. Anything over 2 points is a lot of times a win for white if you can get those 2 points, and then you just try to trade down, get a pawn across, and you'll win the game. So still some play to go here, but definitely white is on the right track. Let's just go back for 1 second to see why we had to move the F rook instead of the C rook. So by the way, if we did the C rook, as you can see, that evaluation bar goes down. The reason is they'll do this again. We have to take it with our king because if we take it with the rook, we've already seen this. No, we get mated actually because the rook is the only thing guarding this rook. So we'll take it there. They'll check us. We have to do this check. Otherwise, we were about to lose. And this time, at the end of this whole thing, they take there. So now, again, if we do the like pieces thing, we see they all have those. And then they have a knight. We have a bishop. As we know, they are pretty close in value. We say 3 points. And in this case, I definitely agree that this position is about like totally equal, actually, as you can see from the evaluation over there. All right, guys, hope that helps. That looking at your opponent's resources, especially if you're playing a real game, but sometimes even in puzzles, even though you know there's a good move for you, which you don't know in a real over-the-board game, you still want to check out your opponent's resources because that can tell you why your move might be the best one. So again, it was knight to d6, double exclam. This is the only winning move, by the way. Knight e3 was about equal, but this is the only way to get a winning advantage. And then again, we do the rook f to e1, so they cannot take a rook at the end of this whole line. They do their best shot, because otherwise they're going to lose their queen for a rook. Again, they could not castle, because our queen is shooting through their kingdom. In order to castle, you have to be safe where you are, where you're jumping through, and where you land. So that's how you can know if you're safe. And in this case, they would have been safe there and there, but not on where they land. And then we do the amazing only winning move. Actually, every other move lost. So that was the only winning move. And yeah, it was the only move that didn't lose too. And then at the end of this whole thing, we get an extra rook for a knight. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like and subscribe, that whole thing. And also be sure to check out my blog in the comments. It'll also have all my pertinent links. And I hope to talk to you guys soon. Keep on playing that impressive chess. Bye, guys.